I'm Reed, just a normal 27-year-old guy talking about building wealth and getting your life together in your 20s. Do not be a fool stuck in a dead-end job. Most ordinary people never get rich. It is not because they do not work hard enough. My dad has been divorced 3 times. He is high, earning and diligent, and he manages his money correctly, but at 50, he still has to start over from scratch. This is because the biggest wealth killer is often not your expenses, but those life decisions that unknowingly drain your bank account. Today, we are going to talk about the wealth killers to avoid in your 20s and 30s. And I promise, at least a few of them you have never heard about on any other financial channel. The first wealth killer I want to talk about today is staying in the wrong city. This is truly a little-known topic, but geographical location, it might be one of the most important financial decisions you can make. If you grew up somewhere where there are not many industries that align with your career aspirations, or the median salary in your city is much lower than what you could earn elsewhere, then continuing to stay there is essentially causing yourself financial loss. A city conducive to wealth accumulation usually has several characteristics. First, it has excellent career prospects. Second, it has high-quality talent. You want to be around people who are as ambitious as you are and have similar goals. Choosing to start your career in a high-paying city is a crucial decision because in the long run, the compounding effect of interest will help you accumulate huge wealth. Furthermore, your first starting salary will be the core benchmark for all your future salary negotiations. Let us make an assumption. Suppose you currently live in Kansas City. The median annual personal income there is approximately $69,000. But if you choose to move to a large city like Austin or Seattle, the local median income would significantly increase. For example, the median annual household income in Austin is $90,000, while in San Francisco it exceeds $135,000. As long as you can effectively control your daily expenses, you can fully utilize the salary differences between different regions to successfully achieve what is called geographical arbitrage. A few years ago, I visited a gold factory and it just happened to be in Switzerland. What was very interesting is that it was very close to the Italian border. Even more astonishing, many of the workers in the factory were from Italy. Just across the border they wanted to work in Switzerland because the salaries in Switzerland are much higher. This is like many Italian workers, specifically going to Switzerland to earn the local high-level wages and then returning to their hometown in Italy where the cost of living is much lower. This is an extreme example, but it is the same principle of geographical arbitrage. Another underestimated factor here is your network. I truly feel that how much money you can earn largely depends on the quality of your network. The people you meet, the opportunities you encounter, and the resources others recommend to you, all of these will be highly dependent on where you actually live. Once you achieve success, you can always choose to move back to your hometown. But trying to develop a career in a city lacking opportunities is absolutely a huge wealth killer. Unfortunately, many young people in their 20s or early 30s do not realize this at all. The second invisible wealth killer is reserving non-income, generating emergency funds. Many friends watching this video might also fall into this trap because you want to manage your finances properly. In a typical emergency fund, you would want to save 3 to 6 months of living expenses, purely for a rainy day. This is just in case you lose your job. You still have some money to rely on to help you pay bills, maintain your life, find a new job, and so on. But I personally know some people who put $80,000, $100,000, or even $167,000 into high-yield savings accounts, simply because, first, it makes them feel more secure, and second, they like having a huge buffer between themselves and a catastrophic emergency. But if you keep 16 to 24 months or even more of living expenses entirely in cash, this extra money will cost you a heavy opportunity cost. Suppose your monthly expenses are $4,000, then a 6-month emergency fund is $24,000, and for 16 months it is $64,000. The difference here is $40,000. If this extra $40,000 is just sitting in a high-yield savings account with an annual interest rate of 3.5%, instead of being invested in the market with a return rate of approximately 8 to 9%, it could cost you about $145,000 over 20 years. The key is to understand how much you actually need after saving enough for a 6-month emergency fund. If you insist on keeping too much cash, this often reflects a subconscious scarcity mindset. There is nothing wrong with pursuing financial security, but do not overdo it. Next, we are going to talk about a potentially uncomfortable and serious topic: divorce. Let me clarify, friends. I am not married yet. I am not qualified to preach to anyone about relationship issues, but I have watched my dad get divorced 3 times. As I mentioned before, I witnessed 2 of those 3 divorces firsthand from the front row. Whether it was his divorce from my mom or the breakdown of his 3rd marriage, each divorce significantly set him back financially. He often told me, "Son, if I had not gotten divorced, I would definitely be much richer than I am now." This indeed proves that choosing the right partner is absolutely one of the most important financial decisions you will ever make in your life. The divorce rate in the United States ranks 6th globally. Even more astonishing, the divorce rates for second and third marriages are as high as 60% and 73% respectively. This clearly indicates that people with a history of divorce face an even higher risk of divorce when they remarry. You might think, given such high divorce rates, everyone should naturally sign a prenuptial agreement to protect themselves. But the reality is not so, as reports indicate that only 15% of married couples sign prenuptial agreements. The main reasons for divorce usually include a lack of commitment from both parties, infidelity, and long-term financial stress. Additionally, the proportion of early marriages is also very high. So, why do we say divorce is such a deadly wealth killer? Obviously, the cost of divorce itself is quite high. It can easily cost you over $20,000. But in my opinion, the hidden costs of divorce accumulate to be much larger. For example, dividing property. A breakup means having to refinance a mortgage at a high interest rate, or being forced to sell a house in a sluggish market, resulting in heavy losses. Even retirement accounts have to be split, requiring complex court procedures. If you withdraw early, you might also face taxes and penalties. There are also moving expenses and the division of various assets, all of which can be mentally and emotionally exhausting. If either of you started a company during the marriage, the situation becomes extremely complex. If all the hidden costs are added to the normal divorce costs incurred through lawyer fees, it could cost you $50,000 to $100,000, and sometimes even more if you have many assets. Ultimately, marriage is actually the most significant financial decision you can make in your life. Choosing the right partner is crucial. Otherwise, a bad marriage could instantly destroy all the wealth you have painstakingly accumulated. The next wealth killer we are going to talk about is that vanity of trying to show off your wealth. There is an old saying in the financial world that has been around for decades called keeping up with the Joneses. The reason this saying has persisted to this day is that it describes one of the most destructive behaviors we all fall victim to, and this behavior is trying to keep up with your friends. On life's journey, it is natural for everyone to want to compare their financial achievements with the superficial possessions of others, like your neighbors, your friends, or just people on Instagram. The moment you fall into the trap of comparing yourself to others, you have already completely lost. What you see on social media are often just other people's carefully packaged highlights. As long as the other person cares about their public image, you will never be able to glimpse the trivialities and imperfections behind their real lives. The new car you see might be leased, the designer brands borrowed, and those luxurious apartments that look glamorous on Instagram might consume 60% of that person's after-tax income. In Texas, they call this a $30,000 millionaire, a concept I have actually mentioned in other videos, and this is precisely the kind of person we want to avoid becoming. This type of person earns only $30,000 a year, but insists on acting like a millionaire, desperately trying to show off their wealth and lifestyle. It is like those who go to nightclubs, spend all their money to book VIP booths, but then cannot even afford a single drink. That is a $30,000 millionaire. The lesson here is those who show off their wealth often have no money at all, while those who are low-key are the truly wealthy. In my personal opinion, as long as you focus on accumulation for a long time, stay in your own lane, and live within your means, you will definitely be richer than those who blindly compare themselves to others. In my opinion, another big killer in your 20s and 30s is only focusing on salary and ignoring equity, especially when you already have the opportunity to get equity. This is particularly crucial if you work at a startup or a company that offers equity compensation, but it is equally important in a general sense. Many current positions, especially in publicly traded companies, startups, or companies preparing to go public, will include equity as part of your total compensation. During salary negotiations, you usually have some flexibility in your choices. You can choose a high base salary with less options or more options with a lower base salary. Many people choose a high base salary because they want to have cash in hand, which can give them more cash flow, perhaps allowing them to rent a better apartment or slightly improve their quality of life. The key is that once these options are successfully cashed out, their value might even be equivalent to your entire 10 years of salary income. While this depends on the company's development, I also understand that not everyone can work for a giant company, but in most cases, if a medium to large-size company offers you options and you are optimistic about that company, I personally believe you should take more options and less cash, because options at least have room for appreciation. Of course, there is an important prerequisite here, which is that you must do your due diligence on the company itself. See if it truly has a future. If your friend just started a new startup in a garage, you might want to think twice about the risks involved, whether you want cash or options when estimating the value of your potential options. I would do two things. First, I would figure out what percentage of the company's total shares my options represent. If the company gives you 10,000 shares, unless you know the actual total outstanding shares, this number means nothing. But if you calculate it and figure out how much your shares are worth in the equity, you can get the total number of shares from human resources or legal. This way, you can figure out your percentage of ownership. Then you can take the second step, which is to figure out how much your company is currently worth or how much it will be worth if there is a liquidation or IPO in the future. If you own 0.1% of the company and the company eventually goes public with, say, a $100 million valuation, then your options are worth 0.1% of that, which is $100,000. If you need more practice in this area, you might want to watch the show Shark Tank because they actually often discuss valuation data. I think the more you watch it, the more you will understand through repetition. The next wealth killer is taking a wait and see approach to investing. If you are a regular viewer of my channel, you should have heard me talk about this concept. If we keep waiting on investments, that is absolutely the safest way to not make money. Let us assume the growth of $10,000 invested in the SP 500 index from 1996 to 2020. You can see that if you remain fully invested, your balance will exceed $192,000. But if you only miss the 10 best performing days during this period, your returns will be reduced by 56%, and the chart will actually get even worse. So, if you miss the 20 best performing days, your returns will be reduced by 74%, and if you miss the 30 best performing days, your returns will be reduced by 84%. Your investment growth depends on whether you are in the market during the best performing days, so you really cannot afford to miss the peak periods. Unless you are close to retirement and need to preserve capital, you should try to hold long-term rather than timing the market. I find that many people always hold on to cash or wait for a market correction. I have many friends like this, but I think that if their returns cannot even beat inflation, then their purchasing power will be eroded by inflation itself. For whatever reason, if you do not want to invest, at least when interest rates are good, you should put your cash in a high-yield savings account. Speaking of not so good things, my next big wealth killer is what I call sunk cost loyalty. This wealth killer refers to staying in a job for too long simply because of comfort, familiarity, or liking your colleagues. But loyalty can actually be a double-edged sword, because if you stay at a company for too long and they only give you, say, a 3 to 5% raise each year, you simply will not make much money, especially if your starting salary was low when you first joined. Suppose after graduating from college, for example, you found a job at the Marriott Hotel Group, and your starting salary was $60,000 per year. Simply put, they give you a 3% cash raise every 2 years. You work there for 10 years, and after these 10 years, your annual salary only increased to $70,000. That is not really a big increase, especially if you have been working somewhere for 10 years. Personally, I am not the type of person who runs into the boss's office demanding a raise.